What is up, IDP Army? It's your man Jordan Reigns at 50 Shades of Drunk. We are back on the YouTube channel. This is the IDP Army. Like I said, we're going to be talking through way too early defensive back rankings, IDP rankings for 2023 Dynasty Fantasy Football. Basically, by doing that, we're going to be looking back at how these last guys, this last crop of IDP defensive backs from 2022, how they finished the season, take a look at some production profiles from the Ultimate IDP Index, take a look at some of the metrics that we like to look at, see how guys finish, talk about some of the narratives going forward that we're going to be watching, maybe give some actionable stuff on, trade for this player, trade away from this player, etc. So we thank you for being here. If it's your first time with us, be sure to subscribe to the channel. We do all kinds of dynasty content. We do best ball content. And of course, we do IDP content. Defensive fantasy football is the future. So before we get into that, if y'all want to jump into the Discord, there should be a link down below in the description. And if you're listening to the podcast version as well, there should be a link there. We're using the Discord a lot more to, run the mock drafts. Mace is doing a lot of those, answering a lot of dynasty questions, a lot of trade questions. It's that time of the year where, we're not playing each other necessarily anymore in head-to-head matchups, but people are still very busy in fantasy football, making moves, getting ready for rookie drafts, etc. Speaking of which, the guys on Offensive Points, they have been doing mock drafts for the actual NFL draft and for Dynasty Fantasy Football. So check those videos out. They are on the channel. We do have some playlists available. You can check those out on. And be sure to check out the shorts and the TikTok because Billy and I next week will be at the Reese's Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama, doing some scouting for you for the upcoming rookie class for fantasy football and just doing some NFL draft scouting. So we have tons of great content. We have both the podcast feeds. We have the rookie stuff coming out. We have the IDP stuff as well. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk IDP defensive backs. Everything today will be in the context of IDP 1-2-3 scoring. Just released a video on the channel week or two ago on IDP 1-2-3 scoring. You can go check that out now. That's the industry standard for IDP scoring. If you're new to fantasy football, IDP fantasy football, that is, wanting to add it to your dynasty leagues for whatever reason, which you should, obviously, the reason being you should. Check out IDP 1-2-3 scoring. Gives a great breakdown. It's only 10-15 minutes on the scoring structure, how it relates to PPR and half PPR formatting, and kind of gets you a jump start on getting into IDP fantasy football. All right. Last thing, this is for you as well. Before we get into the defensive backs, we're going to be doing a lot more rate my teams, rate my trades. All right. So we talk in our comments all the time. If you comment on our TikToks, if you comment on our YouTube shorts, if you comment on our videos, or you show up in any of the live streams, we answer your questions. So if you want us to comment on your trade, rate your current team, rate how your trade is looking, hit us up. We will give you feedback. We're usually good within an hour or two between myself, Mace, and all the other guys from Offensive Points, Josh, Billy, Joe, and Bomber. So, good dynasty minds there. Some good content coming out all the time. And we would love to help you guys, guys and girls, get your team set up to win those future championships. All right. Well, I guess it's time to just go ahead and jump into the finishers for the fantasy football defensive backs this last year. So here are your finishers this last year, and I have the list up in a chronological order, so you can see who scored what this last season. So the number one defensive back for IDP this last year was actually a rookie. Jalen Petrie scored 322 points, 147 tackles, 5 interceptions, playing for Houston. Great season for him from an IDP perspective. We can take a look here at his production profile. Just give you all an idea of what this looks like in the index. Well, this is a rookie one, so I still don't have the banner up there, but you could take a look here, and this just gives you an idea of how Petrie scored this season. I mean, most notably, he had 147 tackles, which is a massive number for any defensive back. You can see that right here in his production profile. His tackle rate, which you can see down here at the bottom right-hand corner, 13.5%, probably a little high for any defensive back. I wouldn't necessarily count it going forward. But what we love is that this is a young player who performed not only admirably, but as the number one defensive back in IDP fantasy football as a rookie. So if you have him on your teams, you probably are already aware of this, but he's going to be probably not this good next year, but he's set up to be lights out in IDP fantasy for a while, Jalen Petrie. So great rookie season for him. He was the number one finisher in IDP. L'Jarius Sneed was a player that was on the sleeper list. If you watched this channel last year or the year before, every year I put out 3 sleeper videos just for IDP players. L'Jarius Sneed was one of my sleepers going into this season. Finishes as the number 2 defensive back, 288 points. Rayshon Jenkins, number 3. Jalen Ramsey, cornerback, number 4. Julian Love, number 5, with 259 points. One of the early season waiver wire pickups and darlings for IDP. Love that for him. Isaiah Simmons, fun player to have here because on Sleeper, where we play fantasy and where most people do, he's defensive back and linebacker eligible. And they did play him more at safety this year, so I thought it would be relevant just to add his name to this list here. So 259 points for him. Talanoa Hufanga. Now, a lot of people loved him this year. Had a great rookie, not a rookie season, second season in the league. Great year for him, though. 0.24 points per snap. This is always one of my first metrics I look at. Tells me if it's a sustainable or an outlier type of situation here. 0.24, not quite an outlier, but it's pretty high, but it's not unsustainable for a defensive back. Let's see what he did the year before. See, the year before, played a lot fewer snaps, but his points per snap were much lower. Now, this is under Robert Saleh when he was still there, so the situation was different. This last year, though, you can see obviously points per snap were up. Snaps overall were up. 4 interceptions, 9 pass deflections, scored about half, or was that almost exactly 50% of his points on solo. So that's a really good distribution of points for Talanoa Hufanga. Love him. If you have him in IDP, he's very highly ranked. I'm going to give you all a peek behind the scenes into the index if you don't have the Ultimate IDP index, just so you can kind of see where we have Talanoa Hufanga. As you can see, he's currently my number 5 if you go a number, but he's in tier 2. 5 overall defensive back in Dynasty. So just wanted to give you a little peek behind the curtain there so you can have an idea of what you could get if you get the Ultimate IDP Index. But Talanoa Hufanga, he's up there for a reason. These are some really meaningful points that he's put up. He showed himself to be a good player, and they're on their way to potentially a Super Bowl. And it's in no small part because of some good safety play. Oh, went back one too far. We'll continue down the list of defensive back players. And again, this is all an IDP 1, 2, 3 scoring. You can go check out that video here on the channel, which breaks that down. And then I also have here plus interception and fumble recovery yards. Those are not default settings, but I think that they're very important to put in because defensive players, the only way that you can actually account for yardage that they may or may not give up in fantasy football scoring is through their fumble and interception yards. Also sack yards, but I haven't messed around with the sack yards quite as much in terms of how it relates to IDP 1, 2, 3. So did not add that in this season. Now we have Derwin James. This is another player. Everyone knows Derwin James. Everyone loves Derwin James. He's going to have a fun production profile to look at here. Let's bring this one up for you. And he's a player that I've been notoriously was kind of down on. He's now my number 1 defensive back in Dynasty. Not even begrudgingly. He's earned it. He deserved it. Let's make this a little smaller so we can see it on the screen here together. All right, so Derwin James this year, 115 combined tackles. You can see that. That's really good. 19 impact plays. Not like a crazy high number, but not a bad number by any means. Let's look here. Points per snap, 0.3. That is a great number for a defensive back to have. 0.3 points per snap. And that's kind of not necessarily in line with what we would expect from Derwin James, but in his range of outcomes, yes, we knew and wanted that. Let's see here. 0.27 the year before or season before. Why is this so hard for me to pull up? There we go. All right. 0.27 the season before, 2021. Let's see here. And then we'll scroll down. 0.22. This was a little bit of a down year for him, 2019. But then you go back to his rookie season, which he was a phenom, 0.26. So on a points per snap basis, this was actually a career year for Derwin James. Love to be able to quickly ascertain that kind of information just looking at these production profiles in the Ultimate IDP Index. It's There's nothing like it on the fantasy football market. I can't recommend it enough. So Donovan Wilson came in next at 9, Desmond King at 10, Marcus Grant at 11. I put cornerback here, and then also 2 more cornerbacks. In the top 10, you can see on the top 11, you can see 4 different players finished in a cornerback position in IDP 1-2-3 scoring. That's one of the advantages of IDP 1-2-3 scoring is you don't necessarily have to stream corners to have a viable corner. You can get a good or a relatively good corner. You can kind of ascertain that information, put them on your team. And the way IDP 1-2-3 scoring is, it allows them to score similar points to these, safeties. May they be in the box, may they be in, the slot, wherever they may be. So you have guys like Jalen Ramsey, second season as an IDP, top 20 defensive back, cornerback. He's not a safety. L'Jarius Sneed, not a safety. Desmond King, not a safety. So these players, the idea that you have to just stream cornerbacks and that it's a really complex and convoluted position to understand for IDP fantasy, it's really not. It's like anything in fantasy football. You have to do the research. You have to see who is a player that has performed in the past. You have to look at how they're being used in the current coaching staff and situation. Is that the same? Is that different? Then, like anything, you have to sort of project how these games are going to play out week to week, how that player fits into that, and then you make, a guess. A lot of people in IDP fantasy space like to just reduce everything down to, is this guy in the box? Is he standing up or is he leaning down? And, who played the most snaps? That's the holy trinity of don't listen to those IDP fantasy football analysts anymore, okay? Because that stuff it doesn't help anybody. That's like, duh, obviously. I mean, give people something useful. Give them tools so they can cultivate those sorts of boundaries that we all know exist. Continuing down this list, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger here, we have my guy, Richie Grant, second-year player. Grant Delpit. Actually, I really love that Grant Delpit came back this year. Struggled with injury, has been on the Cleveland Browns for a while. Again, a player that everyone sort of put into a free safety role. That's why he played at LSU. Comes in this year, 243 points. Great season. We're looking at him. And then the player right next to him who scored 1 fewer point, Minkah Fitzpatrick. 6 picks this season, the most in his career. And I do have his profile up here because it's funny. It's so funny because Minka Fitzpatrick is a player that when I came into the IDP fantasy space, I liked him a lot, and I said he's a good player, and I don't know why people don't talk about him more. And these reductive fantasy analyst people that I'm kind of describing to you just kind of told me, oh, Jordan, you don't understand anything about IDP fantasy. They tried to big bro me. They tried to, kind of make me feel dumb. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, oh, he's just a DB2. He'll never be anything special. He's just a free safety. And I was like, but he's special. Like, watch him play. He's a special player. Oh, but he plays too deep to ever be relevant. So here is one of the things you can do with the index. So we're going to go back to Minka Fitzpatrick's very first season in the league. Again, the bottom right-hand corner here, you can see points per snap. Points. This is how we ascertain how good a player is in fantasy football. 0.19 as a rookie. So we'll see how he's doing it in his career. So this is the point in which I was like, I'm in on Minka, and everyone told me that I was a moron. Let's scroll up a little. Next season. All right. Everybody's vindicated. He does the exact same thing. 0.19 points per snap. They say, oh, Jordan, he only had 69 tackles. He'll never have any. He's a free safety. He can't be special. If he doesn't get his interceptions, he'll never score any points. Let's go see what happened in 2020. 2020, Minka Fitzpatrick, another 79 tackles, but points per snap go up 0.2. Now we're up to 0.21. All right, I still believe. I never quit. Minka Fitzpatrick. Here we go. We're coming in hot. He who laughs last, laughs best. That's what the saying is, right? This year, 2 years ago, 2021, Minka Fitzpatrick almost up to a smooth quarter point per snap now. That's not negligible. And 124 tackles. He tacks on around, 45, 50 more tackles. Believe in something, y'all. Believe in something. And then, well, he'll regress. He's a free safety. He'll just regress. Will he? Again, if you go into our, subscribe to the Patreon, subscribe to this channel membership, and you get the Ultimate IDP Index. You can see this information for yourself. He'll regress. He won't be as good next year. Okay, let's see. Oh, look at that. 0.24 points this season. He's actually statistically gotten better for fantasy football every single season he's played in the league. 96 tackles this season, and he's at a career high interceptions. Good players can just be good, and they can keep getting better, especially if they flash when they're young. That's the takeaway. That's the whole thing there. I've had Minkah on some dynasty teams for years now. I've had a top defensive back year over year over year, and it cost me next to nothing because people who didn't listen to me chose to listen to other people that gave him away. You can have him for a 4th-round pick. I mean, goodness gracious, 4th-round pick. I mean, that's basically garbage. All right, let's continue down this list here. We got to Minkah. Jaquan Brisker had an incredible season for the Bears. Bears rookie defensive back. Bears got a special guy there. I think he and Talanoa Hufanga are going to move into that next sort of era of guys where Derwin and Minkah are right now. Antoine Winfield might get there as well. Rasul Douglas, 16. Buda Baker coming in at 17. Buda Baker this last year was a great example of how people are just overly reactionary. I saw so many analysts and so many people with projections projecting Jalen Thompson, who finished 20th, to finish better as Buda Baker. I said, why would you do that? And they said, well, because and they gave me a reason, but the real reason was because in 2021, Buda Baker finished just a little bit behind Jalen Thompson. Jalen Thompson's been there for a while. And so they go to their models, they go to their projection machines, whatever. They put their info in, click enter, and the machine just has recency bias built into it because all their projections shoot out Jalen Thompson having a better season, even though we have so many seasons of Buda Baker doing so much. And I said, come on, guys, like this is so easy to see. It's just you're literally taking Buda Baker, a player we know who's been good in IDP, putting him behind Jalen Thompson. Because one season, that was true by like 11 or 12 points. But it was enough to shift the entire current to say, well, now Jalen Thompson's actually better than Buda Baker. Not better, but he's going to score more points because that's what my model says. We don't have to be this reactionary. You don't have to let the machines tell you what to say, okay? That's all I'm going to say. All right, but before we go on, like I said, do me a favor. Well, I haven't said this yet. Do me a favor and subscribe to the channel and thumbs up this video. We would love that. And I'm going to run this ad right here real quick so you all can know what we all got going on in the Ultimate IDP Index, in the Dynasty rankings, and in the best ball stuff. So check this out. Stick around, and we'll be right back. Finish off the defensive backs. Looking for the ultimate edge in fantasy football? The Ultimate Fantasy Index is finally here. The Ultimate Fantasy Index features the Ultimate Dynasty Index, the Ultimate IDP Index, and the Ultimate Best Ball Index. Each index features tiered rankings that are updated daily, which means you'll have a clear understanding of not only who the top players are, but also who the next best options are. More fun, more football, more fantasy for the culture. Join the IDP Army and start winning your leagues today. Yes. Join the IDP Army official. Go to patreon.com/the IDP Army or become a channel member. You can get all the stuff I just described there. And I'll take a peek at it. So you've already kind of looked at what the Ultimate IDP Index is. Many of you have already had this for various periods of time. Some of you have been subscribed to this since the beginning, and I thank you for that. So this is what the Ultimate IDP Index looks like. This is where we have essentially it's tiered rankings, but it's so much more than that. And you can get in and learn about IDP players, who's the best. But everything else described in there as well, we have as well. So we have the Dynasty rankings, okay? So that's similar to the Ultimate IDP Index. Everything's tiered out, contract information, little sports blurbs, backlinks to tweets, interesting articles, et cetera. It's like a second or third brain, just so you have a place to do infinite amounts of high quality research while also looking at hand-curated, tiered rankings for someone who won. I don't mean to brag too much, but made it to the championship, not just into the playoffs, the championship in 50% of my dynasty leagues this year. No big deal. and I won 2 of them. One of them I had to split, which I would have won. Guys don't happen on that Monday night game. So feel good about that. Feel good about what we're putting out over there. Best ball rankings had another great season at best ball. The real highlight of that is the do not draft list, which we nailed so many guys on there. Some of the guys that we said to draft didn't necessarily pan out in such a massive, massive way, but we saved a lot of people, a lot of landmines. And then the rookie rankings are in there. So go check that all out if you want to be in the ultimate know. All right, so let's finish out the defensive backs here. And, this is just a breakdown sort of how this last season finished off. So you can all see, some of these names you'll know from your teams in your team. If you're a Bucks fan, you know who Antoine Winfield is. If you're a Seahawks fan, you know who Tariq Woolen is. You know who these players are. And this gives you an idea of how your favorite defensive back safety stacks up against other players this last season. And a lot of rankings you will see, and it's natural to have recency bias. I don't think one of the things that I think I'm going to champion a lot this offseason. I'm going to say that again. One of the things I think I'm going to champion a lot this offseason is this idea that we can just eliminate bias is preposterous, honestly. You know what I mean? I mean, we're human. That's just a natural thing. We everything's so clean and polished, but it's still there. I think we need to move into more of a narrative where we acknowledge the bias and say how it affects what we're thinking and acknowledge what we are thinking and not try to necessarily pretend to be overly objective all the time. So I will say, a lot of people's rankings will reflect this, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's how this season ended. That's how these players this last season finished. There are some players who deserve to be moved up in rankings, so that's fine. But let's go ahead and finish off here. Jonathan Owens, another Houston defensive back, 18. Javon Holland, 19. Jalen Thompson at 20. Kevin Byard, and then Kyle Duggar at 22. Kyle Duggar finished at DB 22, finished with 222 points. He had a wild season. I actually was just putting his profile together earlier. Dude scored 3 touchdowns this year. Like, Kyle Duggar scored 3 touchdowns this season. That's some crazy-ish right there. You know what I'm saying? So he's an impact player in a different kind of way, and he only played like 700 some odd snaps. So big shout out to Kyle Duggar. I'm not going to pull his production profile up. You know where to find it. Harrison Smith, 24. Tyrann Mathieu at 20 or 23 for Harrison Smith. Tyrann Mathieu at 24 kind of surprised me. Really just he's a perfect example of health. He didn't really have any big weeks this season. He didn't do much that was overly special, and he didn't really pad the box score. He just showed up every single week for the Saints team and was out there. So, DB 24, unfortunately, I think Tyrann Mathieu's best days are well behind him for IDP purposes. Rodney McLeod, 25. Adrian Amos, 26. Patrick Peterson with a nice season here, 215 points. Tariq Woolen, 214 points, 6 picks as a rookie. Von Bell, 214. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson finished with 211 points, 6 interceptions. His season was cut short. He was on his way to having an even more massive season. He got knocked out for, I think, 4 or 5 games with injury. But, even to finish in the top 30, missing 4 or 5 games. He was on his way to have something special. So keep an eye out for Chauncey or CJ Gardner-Johnson if he's out there in your leagues, if somebody's trying to move on from him for whatever reason. Honestly, if he's on a team, it's probably an Eagles fan, and we all know Eagles fans, they're rabid. So good luck. Let's continue. Tyson Campbell, 211 points. John Johnson, 209. Good to see John Johnson still being relevant out here for IDP. Jonathan Jones, 209, kind of curious. And then Antoine Winfield, I do want to pull him up. Did not finish super high. Another player that missed some time this season. But I want to bring Antoine Winfield into the mix because he's another one of these players where the last 2 seasons, year over year, people have said, oh, well, Antoine Winfield, he's been good, but he can't get better. Or Antoine Winfield's good, but, he's not going to stay that good, or it's not, it's just whatever it is, they wanted to fade him. Probably because we were too excited about him. 24 years old, you can see here. I have him as a buy. 2nd round draft pick would be nice. Played 764 snaps, so a little bit of a shorter season than we expected from him. Missed a couple of games. What I want to point out is 4 sacks this season. I brought up a lot this offseason how he was blitzed a ton in 2021, and a lot of those just didn't come to fruition. We'll see here. Go look down here. 2 sacks. And I thought he should have had plenty more. This season has 4 sacks total. while playing even fewer snaps than last season. You can see here in the index total snaps right here above the solo tackle arrow. I call it an arrow. 876, 2 sacks, 3 quarterback hits for Winfield, and points per snap, 0.25. And then this season, 0.27, getting better. Look at that. Haters will say, he's not very good, is he? He's not very good at football. Well, they'd be wrong. 0.21, look at that. Well, he can't get better. 0.25. Well, he's going to regress. 0.27. Women lie, men lie. Your heat chart spreadsheets lie. But the ultimate IDP index and the production profiles therein, they do not lie. They only speak the absolute truth. All right, let's back out of here and finish this up. Teron Johnson, another cornerback, RIP to the Bills season. And then Derek Forrest comes in here. And actually, I want to take a look at something really quick. Yeah, Jalen Thompson. I want to go back to Jalen Thompson. I still think he's a great player to have on your IDP teams. Another good season for he and Buddha. 231 for Buddha Baker, Jalen Thompson. Right behind him, 225. Both these players are phenomenal for IDP. I wanted to point out earlier, and I have a note here because I knew it might come off like that. I just wanted to point out that recency bias, again, is real. And it's, again, if you acknowledge it, I feel like that's almost better than just being like, well, I've accounted for it and taken it out. But all you really did was just readjust completely. So, all right, what else do we need to talk about? Yeah, so that's the defensive backs. That's how we finished off this season, IDP Army. This was kind of a way too early look. Like I said, it's just a recap of how last year was. Our rankings are updated, obviously. If you are in the index, you know that things are being updated constantly. So you'll have a really good idea there of what's going on. We haven't put out a whole lot of content right now because we're working on the back end to make sure that stuff is all crisp and clean and tight so that you can win those leagues as well as look good. You know what I'm saying? So go ahead and check those out if you haven't joined the IDP Army on Patreon, or you can become a channel member. Check out both of the podcast feeds because the Dynasty content is coming out hot. The best ball content is coming out hot. The NFL draft content is coming out hot. And the IDP fantasy content is coming out hot. Like I said, I do apologize. It has been a little while since I did a show, but I wanted to make sure that I was getting a good idea and a good grasp on kind of what our content plan was and our strategy going forward for the next couple of weeks. We do have the Senior Bowl next week. So if anybody's in Mobile, hit me up. And like I said, be sure to join the Discord. That's where you're going to get all of our updates and all that good stuff. So that's pretty much for me. It for me, IDP Army. Do us a favor and leave us a 5-star rating and review if you're still listening on the podcast. We would love that. We need some more 5-star ratings, some more reviews on some of those spots. And then again, please let us know. We would love to help you with your trades. Rate my team, rate my trade. If you're thinking about making a move, we would love to walk you through it. Don't do anything hasty. Join our Discord. We would love to help you sort that out. Leave us some comments on the shorts and on the TikTok. And yeah, that's it for me, IDP Army. So we appreciate you all, and stay woke.